Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of The Best Games, period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and with me today, as always, is the ever-trusty Jeremy Brown. However, we are down a Daniel Jones for this week. Sorry, everyone. I know you love Daniel, but he's got things to do.
Do they?
Well, I mean, I like to think so. It's my headcanon. I'm writing fan fiction about it. It's okay. But more importantly than Daniel being gone is this week we have a special guest, and that guest would be Elizabeth DeLoria, talking to us from the far-flung reaches of Australia today.
It's hot and everything's trying to kill me here. It's pretty terrible.
I imagine that's every day in Australia, though, isn't it?
It's actually in my part of the country. I live in Melbourne, which is all the way down the south, and before Australia actually separated from like all the other countries, like way back, like caveman era, it was actually part of Antarctica. So my state gets really cold. So it's been very cold lately, but cold for us is like 20 degrees Celsius. So I don't know what that is for you.
And we don't know what that is here either.
That's pretty warm.
Math.
Well,
I like how we're talking about Pangea already on this show. This is awesome.
So this week we're going to be talking about, as we usually do, we're going to be talking about video games, but Australia kind of has a unique relationship with the video game industry, and I know I'm interested in hearing more about your take on that.
It really depends what you want to hear about. Kind of got an indie scene down here. It's probably bigger than the actual games scene is. There's like no AAA games here anymore. Or we could talk about, the fact that my country loves censoring things. That's up to you.
Do you think there's few AAA games because of that latter part? I mean, I kind of want to hear about both, but
I wouldn't say it's to do with the censorship. It's more to do with money. There's not a lot of tax breaks or funding available for video games in Australia. At the moment, there kind of is, because I think everyone from the government funding space has turned around and said, oh, God, there's like no one making games here anymore. Everyone's losing their jobs. So they kind of tried to fix it, but it's too late. We had a lot of studios down here. We had THQ, we had EA down here, and they've all closed. And pretty much most of the remaining studios are gone now. It's all indie development here.
Yep.
So yeah, you're talking about development, not necessarily availability.
Oh yeah, availability is another thing. We have a notorious, we call it price gouging. We have a pretty notorious problem for that.
Yeah, I remember at one point, like, Rock Band was like $200.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no instruments?
Oh, no, I think it came with one guitar. One. For example, I paid, what was the last game? Fallout. For the Fallout 4, for the game itself, you were looking at about $110, $120 for EB Games, which is our version of GameStop, owned by the same people. And that was even on Steam. Online, same price for everything. It's ridiculous.
Man, why is that? Do you know?
Originally, the excuse that's been used pretty much until digital distribution happened was that companies could get away with it because they could use shipping as an excuse. The games weren't produced here; they'd have to be shipped from wherever. They have to come through customs, which can be pretty expensive, which was kind of understandable back in the 90s. But, it costs literally nothing for Steam to sell us a game now when we download it over crap.
Yeah, it's pretty odd that Steam has that same upsale price.
Yeah. And there's actually been, I think there's been a government, or there will be a government inquiry into the pricing of online games here, like the price hike, or it's being fought for or something. But yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's interesting because I guess I always assumed the higher price was because of taxes or some sort of like you said, customs arrangement. But it is weird that digital games would then still retain that price too.
Exactly. And we do have a GST, a general sales tax, but it's exactly the same as the VAT tax in the UK. And games are still cheaper in the UK. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But hopefully it changes. We did get Steam, the government did sue Steam and get them to start providing refunds, which is really good. So baby steps.
Yeah.
So if you buy a physical copy of a game at EB Games, for $110 and take it in and trade it in, do you get that equal value back and trade in, or do they still give you like $6?
Oh, that's funny.
I expected as much.
I think the most I've ever gotten in a trade-in at EB Games was someone actually bought me a physical copy of Dragon Age, and then someone else bought me a digital copy, so I took the brand new physical copy of Dragon Age back in, and this is like 3 days after launch, and that was retailing for about $90, and they gave me $25 value on it.
Okay.
Oh, that's criminal.
Wasn't even open
that is
yet.
criminal.
And the guy looked at me and he's like, if you had the receipt, I could just give you a full refund. And like, even the staff at EB Games are very aware that it's a ripoff. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I find that kind of
skeezy.
repulsive.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So you really have to pick and choose your games wisely. I mean, unless you're just extremely wealthy.
We're very lucky in Australia in that we did have a couple of game retailers. We actually had Game here for a while, things like that. They slowly went broke in Australia, at least. I think they're still operating in the UK. I'm not sure. But EB Games is basically the only dedicated games retailer here. But we're very lucky in that we do have a couple of really good independent stores. We've got, oh gosh, now I've forgotten the name of it. It's like Oz Games Shop or something. They mostly deal off eBay, but they usually provide what they can at wholesale prices. And we've also got Critical Hit, and they're really good in that they import a lot of games that don't get an Australian release, which is another problem we have. So there's been a bit of a rise in independent game shops, which has been awesome. Really cool.
Are there region restrictions? Can you import a game from the UK or the United States and be able to play it on your console?
It depends on the game and the console.
And clearly not Nintendo.
Yeah. No, that's probably the worst one, actually, because Nintendo are so picky on where they release certain games. So if you're like me and a big Fire Emblem fan, there was a big period there where we weren't getting a release for the new Fire Emblem game.
Really?
Yeah, there was probably a 1 month period where we heard nothing and we're like, oh God, we're not going to get it. And the only option would have been for me to go out, buy an American DS and then buy an American copy of the game, but we did get a release, so that's going to be good. I'm excited about that.
Region restriction is just one of those things to me. It's just insane. It doesn't make any sense anymore.
It's probably one of the biggest reasons that Australians are so big on piracy. We pirate everything. Like, torrenting Game of Thrones is like an Australian national pastime now. Like,
so developed and published games from other countries that do make it there, the censorship is it as bad as sometimes you hear, or do you pretty much get the proper game?
It's gotten better. For probably like 4 or so years ago, we didn't have an R18 plus rating on video games. The highest rating was MA15 plus. Which is,
really?
Yeah, that was the highest available rating for video games. So you'd get games like Mortal Kombat, for example, I can't remember what one it was. But yeah, one of the Mortal Kombat games they couldn't release it here. It was basically effectively banned by the ratings board because it was so gory and they couldn't fit it into an MA15 plus game. So they had to bring it up to an R18, which didn't exist, so it couldn't be classified, so it couldn't be sold. That's actually why in Fallout 3, Med-X is called Med-X and not morphine anymore, because they were like, well, if you use morphine in this game, we're going to have to make it R18 plus, which is not a thing here, so you won't be able to sell it. And Bethesda's turned around and said, well, look, it's just going to be cheaper for us to just change it in all the regions, so they did. And yeah, sorry about that.
Huh.
that was our bad.
Didn't know that.
It's okay. I kind of like the sound of Med-X. It just seems more...
Kind of sounds cooler.
Yeah.
It fits alongside like Radaway and stuff like that.
I mean,
yeah.
Especially like you've got all those like fictional drugs like Radaway and Jet and Buff Out and morphine.
It just doesn't quite fit. Yes, I agree. So
is the ratings board? I swear this will be the last question about like Australian video games. But is the ratings board like an official part of the government in Australia?
It's a government-run agency, and we recently did, probably again last 4 years, we all campaigned very, very hard, and we did get an R18 plus rating. So, we've had a lot of banned games show up, which has been great. But it's a board full of mostly old white guys. They have reached out recently. They've taken a lot of criticism on board, and they have actually been reaching out to people in the video game community to come and, act as consultants, which has been really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is an entirely government-funded agency.
See, whereas here in the States, it's not really a law. It's just a third-party thing that most retailers have agreed to abide by, but if they break the ratings thing, it's not like you actually get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get as wide of distribution. That's kind of your trouble. But,
yeah.
With digital distribution now, it's not a huge deal.
Well, here, even if you sell Cards Against Humanity to someone without doing an ID check, and they do turn out to be a kid under the age of 18, and, a complaint's made against whatever vendor, you're looking at a $4,000 fine.
See, and that doesn't happen here. It's not a civil or criminal offense. It's literally just a suggestion.
I don't think board games are even governed under that at all. So pretty sure we don't have ratings on board games. I could be wrong. Most board games don't?
We have ratings on everything. Magazines, books. It's all very controlled, the media we consume here.
Do you think in the long run that's beneficial?
If the system was kind of run by a more inclusive kind of board, I think it would be really good because, I think it's important. A lot of people don't really care to research the media their kids consume, for example. There are things that I don't want to see in things, so the ratings can be quite helpful. But, yeah.
That being said, it depends on who's doing the actual reviewing and rating.
Exactly.
And when
on paper, it's a good system.
Yeah. At a certain point, it can cross the line into utter ridiculousness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But now that we've had a crash course on, Australian censorship / distribution of games and rating systems, how are you doing, Elizabeth? What are you playing?
What am I playing? Oh gosh, this is really embarrassing. But I've been playing a lot of Star Wars Battlefront.
That's not embarrassing.
Yeah, I did talk a lot of shit about it. Which is very embarrassing. But no, I've been playing a lot of that recently. And CK2, that's pretty much my go-to when I get a spare couple of hours. And then it turns into 14 hours. So, yeah, at the moment, not really investing in anything new. I've been studying a lot, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know who you are or what you do, can you tell us a little bit about that? Who is Elizabeth DeLoria?
Oh my gosh. Well, I started as a opinions writer. I worked for a channel here called Channel 31, working on a couple of video game shows. From there, I've worked for Game Ranks. I've popped up on a heap of different websites, including I was on CNN talking about Avril Lavigne's Hello Kitty video. For some reason they thought I was the person to ask about that, and I was like, okay. I've also worked on TV. I worked for a TV show called Worldwide Gaming, which was again on Channel 31 for a while. I also produced a couple of things there, but mostly I've just kind of flitted around the internet throwing opinions at people. I've done some voice acting as well, which has been odd, but really, really cool. So I'm hoping to do a bit more of that as time goes on, which is exciting.
Why was that odd?
Oh, I don't know. It's just something that everyone kind of wants to do. Everyone really wants to break into voice acting. Like, you talk to anyone and go, oh, would you like to give voice acting a shot? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, definitely. But it was so weird just, answering an open call and being told, yeah, you're perfect. Awesome. Here's all your lines. And it's surreal actually getting to do it.
So would you say that Avril Lavigne segment was complicated?
Yes. I like this guy.
Thank you. See, this is my contribution to the show. I just make terrible puns.
I'm always down for a good dad joke.
Exactly.
By the way, why did they contact you to talk about an Avril Lavigne music video?
It
seems very random.
Yeah, I think it was because of the backlash about, it being kind of racist in its own weird way. And someone who worked for CNN was looking for someone to comment on it. And her words were, I'm looking for someone who knows a lot about Japanese pop culture and Japanese music. And someone on Twitter's like, yeah, this is your girl. And I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. Why not?
That is amazing.
Yeah,
That's
really
a great,
weird.
thing.
So
And what did you do voice acting in?
I've done a couple of just like little indie projects here and there. I get a lot of work doing university game developers stuff, but that's just something I do for free. Most recently, there's a Skyrim mod at the moment called, okay, it's not the best name, but it's called Skyrim Romance Mod. It's a pretty big one. It adds about 8 to 12 hours to the game. It's won a bunch of awards, things like that. It's been mentioned in PC Magazine. It's got a pretty big following, and they're working on the second chapter, which will add a further 12 to 14 hours. And I play a character whose name is Helvi, and she's a huntress, but she's also a witch, and it's really cool. I get to yell at people and do blood sacrifices. It's my thing.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's really good. And I've read for a couple of other projects at the moment that I'm waiting to hear back on, but I've been NDA'd about them, which sucks because I just want to talk about them. They're awesome.
All right.
I love Skyrim mods. Can I find that just on Steam? The whatever Skyrim blah 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 mod Nexus thing, whatever it's called.
The best way to find it is it's hosted on the Nexus, but it's actually got its own website, which is, I think it's just skyrimromance.com.
Oh, okay.
So the first chapter's been up for a while. That's fully voice acted, stuff like that. But I'm not in that one. I'm in the one that will be coming out kind of soonish. They're still working on it. Fallout 4 kind of pushed back the date. We're all too busy to really do anything, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure Fallout 4 pushed back the date of a lot of things.
Oh, God. Pushed back my life.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. And you do some costume work too, right?
Yeah, I do. I've kind of put it off a little bit at the moment because I've taken up professional wrestling, which is weird.
No, really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
What is your professional wrestling name?
At the moment, I'm not actually in matches. I've had some injuries. I've actually had a spine problem show up that I didn't know about.
Oh, no.
It's treatable. It'll be fine.
Okay.
But I actually am in shows at the moment. I am the commissioner of NAW. So I kind of run things. I'm like the Stephanie McMahon, I like to think. But when I'm at NAW, my name's Eliza Sterling. And that's difficult because the boys don't behave, but I like to put them back in their place, which is pretty fun.
Do the boys ever behave?
No.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Not when the heavyweight championship's on the line. Believe me.
Come on, boys.
Hey, I mean, they got to do what they got to do. It's all about winning. It's about the game.
This is actually a pretty fun conversation.
So let's just get this straight. TV presenter, voice actress, cosplayer, wrestling commissioner, and CNN's go-to expert on Avril Lavigne Hello Kitty music videos. That's quite a resume.
Yeah, well,
very, very diverse. You should be able to get a job in pretty much any industry.
I wish. I really wish. Wow.
Okay.
So I hear you like Fallout games.
Yeah, I do. I really like Fallout games. So much I changed my last name.
Really?
Yeah, DeLoria is not my actual birth name. I adopted it when I started writing because my father's in the police force, and I kind of wanted to make sure that my writing was separate to him because we're from a very small town, so I've always been quite conscious about that. And it just sort of stuck. It has a nice ring to it.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
Side note, much respect to your father.
Thank you.
That's not an easy job.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not.
Where does the name come from in the Fallout universe?
Butch DeLoria, the bully in Fallout 3, who pretty much torments you until his mother's in mortal danger and then he turns into a wuss bag. He's actually one of my favorite characters. So, yeah, I was just kind of toying around with it. And, when you're 18, you're like, oh, waifu. So, yeah, I just went with it. And someone's like, oh, that's a really cool name. It's got a nice ring to it. And I'm like, yeah, it does. I'll go with that. So that's how it happened.
Very cool.
So yeah, this week we're talking about Fallout 3, 2008 release, I believe, for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. And it's widely regarded as one of the best games ever.
Yeah.
Like, I think IGN put it on a top 10 list of the decade as number 1. And not only that, there's a bajillion Game of the Year awards.
Yeah.
It routinely shows up on lists of amazing things in gaming. So, of course, we were going to talk about it eventually. And, Elizabeth, you chose it for this week. And, why'd you choose it? Aside from, it's amazing, everyone should play it,
okay, so
etc.
So first of all, I had no idea it was that old. Like, my God, I have aged.
Oh yeah, it
Tell me
makes
about
me
it.
doing this show makes me feel so old. Last week we talked about Ratchet and Clank.
Oh my
the
God.
original one.
Yes.
That one came out 14 years ago.
No.
Yes.
No, nah, you're wrong.
14 years ago.
Nah.
2002.
I refuse to believe that. I'm in a state of denial. Yeah, I picked Fallout 3 because it was a pretty significant game to me in sort of me realizing, like, this is kind of what I want to do for the rest of my life, like work with video games and be involved with them and stuff like that. I actually dropped out of high school. And
Really?
yeah, there was a kind of 3-week laying around and doing nothing with my life period before a new job started that I got, and I just spent it playing Fallout 3 because my brother said, you'll really like this game, and it changed my life. It really did, which is kind of lame, but it did.
Oh,
yeah,
it's not lame.
Don't think that's lame.
Yeah, games are powerful things.
yeah. Well, I can just remember, like, I started playing it and I was like, oh, this is really cool because I do prefer games where I am allowed to play as a woman. I just feel like I connect with them better.
Me too. Being completely honest, I'm not sure about the connection part, but I just love that option, and I usually choose it.
Games so rarely allow you to do that.
Exactly.
Which is a shame, but that's one reason I loved Fallout 4, and it was great. It was a great experience playing through that game as a woman.
Exactly, and it's at the stage now where I've actually I've realized so much how much more I enjoy games where I can play as a woman and kind of play a game from my perspective. Being a girl, it's chemistry is different, that kind of stuff.
Wait, you're a girl?
Oh my God!
Whoa! Whoa!
Jack, we had an agreement. No girls on this podcast.
There's gonna be some fallout from this.
I thought it was a good game. I was enjoying it, but I'm like, oh, this isn't really like anything special. I'll play through it. I'll probably get bored before I finish. And towards the end of the intro to the game, when you're in the vault and you're escaping and everyone's yelling and there's crying, it's not great. I was that part where you actually leave the vault for the first time and there's just that blinding light because it's the first time you've ever been outside. And there's that blinding light. And then you hear your character take like a breath of air and that like little bit of choir starts playing and then you just see the whole wasteland in front of you. And it actually took my breath away.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is special. This is really special. Like, what a way to like open a game. And that moment has just stuck with me for like the rest of everything I've ever done. I'm always like, yeah, but does it compare to that moment in Fallout where you saw the wasteland for the first time? Yeah, so from there on, it was just like my favorite game. I enjoyed every second of it, even the bugs.
What, the rad roaches?
Oh, no, I mean like the glitches, man.
He knows what you mean.
It's like you ask Bethesda if it's a bug or a feature, and they're like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, for its time, it was like one of the largest games ever in terms of just sheer digital in-game size. It was like several miles square to run around in of DC, based on actual Washington, DC.
And then on top of that, you've got areas that you can, like sub-areas to go into, like your buildings, your subways, things like that. It was,
all the other vaults. Yeah, I mean, tons of stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
When I think of Fallout 3, though, I think of probably that first maybe 4 or 5 hours of the game. Not so much the moment where you get out of the vault for the first time, although that was pretty breathtaking, like you said, I think of the interaction you have when you reach Megaton.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where the game was like, I was playing, I was like, oh my, this is like nothing I've played before.
You have to make a huge decision very early on in the game that's going to impact the rest of the entire game, and you're just like,
Well, I mean, this is, we don't care about spoilers on this podcast, so if you care about spoilers
and
haven't played an 8-year-old game that's considered iconic, maybe go play that first and then listen to this show. But you're given the choice in an early on mission of whether or not to detonate the atomic warhead that's in the middle of Megaton. And if you do that, you get a bunch of resources from this kind of not so trustworthy seeming person. But if you do blow it up, the entire town is wiped out, obviously. And if you don't, the town is still there. You can still do quests in it, all that good stuff. But just having that amount of power to impact the world and the story was really interesting to me.
And I think one of the coolest things about that as well, offering that kind of choice so early into the game, is what Fallout 3 does that a lot of games don't, is it really plays on the fact that you don't know what's going on. Like, you're coming into this fresh, you've been literally underground your whole life, and you're like, you don't know anything, you don't know anything about what's happened, you don't know how things work up there, so you come up top, and then a man's offering you, like, all this money and, like, an apartment and resources to blow up a town. Which is exactly what someone like that would do if someone so green came into town. Like, if you saw someone from a vault and you were like, well, they don't know what's what. And I really, really like that, because a lot of games, when they do give you that kind of huge consequence creating choice, they do it because they want you to have a level of responsibility. They want you to be like, you're the chosen one, only you can make this choice, and everyone trusts you, whereas this is a guy kind of trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I really, really like that. I just thought it was so true to the entire game and the entire universe that they've created.
Can we back up a little bit and talk about just before you leave the vault and that whole scenario where, you read the book as a baby and you get your special attributes, and then you go through the whole goat thing.
You interact with Liam Neeson dad.
Yeah, I mean, the whole character creation part was very intuitive and also very in-depth. And I think that was the first game that I had played that really took it to that level. And I thought that was pretty impressive. Pretty neat.
Yeah, it was a really brilliant way to do tutorial. I've never seen a game... There are very few game tutorials where I'm like, yeah, this feels good. I enjoy this. But that was an interesting way to do it. You're like living through your childhood and like your like 10th birthday, I think, and like all this different stuff, and it's building the characters that you see later on when it's time to escape the vault, setting up the tunnel snakes and all that stuff. It's a really brilliant little segment of the game, and I kind of wish there was more of it, but
I mean, what a better way to connect with your own character than to literally grow up with them.
Yeah,
even if it's an abridged version, like, you're literally following your character from their first steps to their teenage years to, I'm pretty sure that, like, how it has, like, the white screen in between the, 10th birthday and the goat test, and you can hear people saying things, and one of the things you hear your dad say is boys and girls have different paths, which is, like, I mean, you hear your dad give you the sex talk, and what a way to kind of not only create that...
Not only that, you hear Liam Neeson give you the sex talk.
Right? But, what a way to create a connection to not only your own character, but to your dad, and, like, to that character who's such a pivotal character in the game, and create that motivation to go out and follow the storyline. I think that's where a lot of Bethesda games have actually fallen short. They give you the option to follow the storyline if you want, but they don't give you a motivation to do so.
Correct. I would agree with that, yeah.
In Fallout 3, you've got Liam Neeson, and then, spoilers, your dad dies, and you're like, right, no, you don't kill Liam Neeson. You don't kill my dad. How dare you? He was the nicest man on the planet. So, you've got that emotional connection to him. And it's built so well that it makes you want to follow it through, and you want to finish his legacy. which is, I think that's really where they fall short in a lot of their newer games.
It's kind of the first game that Bethesda really got right when it comes to motivation. You're right. Like, it is one of the first Bethesda games that I actually managed to make I actually managed to make it to the end of the game, like the end of the game, before it got the patch that let you continue playing. But at the same time, there's always this urge whenever I play these games to, what's that thing on my minimap? And the what's that thing is just kind of what I call it for short.
Yeah.
But, like, what's over that hill? Like, what is that mysterious place that I've never been to before? And that always gets me tripped up.
I like that, the what's that thing factor.
Yeah. That's what I love about open world games, Bethesda games. It's like a great feature, a great hook, and it's a great testament to how well their world is built that I want to see every inch of it that I haven't seen yet.
I mean, I still jump back in, still. And, I've got, like, probably, I think last count, I had about 16 gig of mods attached to my Fallout my Fallout 3 game. Skyrim's worse. Skyrim is way worse.
There's tons of mods for Skyrim, though. I mean, and there is for Fallout 3, but...
I am a serial polygamist in Skyrim, I'll tell you that now. Let's just say... I've got Ulfric Stormcloak under my thumb. But, I still jump back into Fallout 3. And even if, I turn all the mods off, I can still be like, okay, I'm going to try doing this a different way. Or I haven't seen this part of the map. I don't know why. I've never been to this part of the map. I'm just going to go and check it out. Or, can I get through... Yeah. There's a part in the north of the map that's just full of death claws. It's like Death Claw Central. Like, they're jumping out of, like, bits of the map that aren't even there. I'm pretty sure it's where they generate. It's like Murder Town up there. And I love going through there, and I'm like, okay, how long can I last without taking a stim pack? Because there's some sick loot up there. But, it's a game that you can pretty much just get back into, no matter how long it's been since you've played or how much of it you've played.
And it totally rewards you for exploring. But it also does somewhat keep you focused on the main quest, which is difficult to do in games like that. For me.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's hard to tell a story when you're constantly checking out to go look at a different part of the world.
I call it the squirrel concept. You just see something and you're like, ooh, squirrel, and you get distracted, and suddenly that water purification system can wait a little while longer. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think is actually one of the genius moves of that game. The radio. 3 dog on the radio, because you might be off squirreling, or like, the what's that factor's got you, and you're like on this weird side quest to go collect Nuka-Cola bottles so a guy can get laid. Because, you're a nice person. You want to help out. But like...
Catching your dad's killer can wait.
Yeah, I know. This guy needs to get...
I mean, when sex is involved, that's the main storyline suddenly.
Your character lived in a vault for like 18 years. They get it. Like... and you might be doing a side quest, but then every 10 minutes you've got 3 dog being like, hey, so the water purifier, I've got some news on that, and it reminds you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds you without being too obstructive to what you're currently doing. So it's constantly like in the back of your mind, okay, I'll do this, but then the water purifier is waiting for me, that kind of thing,
Yeah. Well, and then there's also the music.
Oh.
We haven't really talked much about the music, but the sound, the oldies soundtrack that they have going on the radio system is the best compliment to wandering this destroyed wasteland. And just, it's so melancholy, but also upbeat at the same time.
It's definitely what my brother was thinking about when he said I love that game. Again, history nerd, I love my oldie wartime stuff, so he's like, no, you'll just listen to it, just listen. And he was right. Like, I now know every single word to Let's Go Sunnin', and that is not something I thought I'd ever do.
So not only that part of the soundtrack, like the oldies stuff, but I just want to take like a brief minute to talk about a little man you may have heard of named Inan Zur.
Oh, bless him.
It's weird because not a lot of people talk about him or what he does, but he's like kind of the John Williams-ish, or maybe not John Williams, but like the, what's his name? Did the music for Edward Scissorhands.
Hans Zimmerman? No, Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I know you meant Hans Zimmerman, but I heard it as Hans Cinnamon. It's just like I had to laugh. But yeah, he's like the Danny Elfman of video games. He's just everywhere. Like if you actually look up what he's done, like he's done the Dragon Age series. He's done like so many different little fantasy games. He's done Fallout, obviously.
I was writing a book for a while because I thought I'd give fiction writing a crack, because I hate myself and I like getting frustrated. But I actually named a character after him.
Really?
Yeah, like, that's how common he is in video game soundtracks, because when I listen, like when I'm writing anything, I've just got video game soundtracks going, and you know, I think it's just a name that you see once and it kind of sticks with you. So yeah.
I mean, how many times are you gonna see Inan Zur?
I know.
Like, that's not a name you see every day.
That's a name you remember. But yeah, no, his catalog of work is incredible, and what I really like about him as well is, speaking of the Dragon Age series, he did the soundtrack for Dragon Age 2. And Dragon Age 2 was obviously very rushed. But,
yeah.
You know, the soundtrack wasn't as bad as it could be, but it didn't have the usual depth that his scores usually do. And, you know, someone brought it up with him and he actually fully admitted to it not being what he wanted it to be. You know, I really like that about him. He's got this real like humility, which was awesome. And that kind of stuck with me. And I'm like, yeah, that guy's cool. Yeah. So I got mad respect for him, and what he did in Fallout was just awesome. Like the little violin, parts you hear every now and then, it just kind of like, it makes you feel lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned like he doesn't have like a big ego, I think, about his work. He's very humble, and if you look at his gamography, like all the things that he's worked on, like he does amazing work, but he's not too proud at the same time to, you know, turn his nose up at like say Naruto Rise of a Ninja or Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar the game on 3DS. Like he'll put in his time and do work.
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
yeah. No, he gets it. He gets it.
Yeah. But yeah, he's worked on some great stuff, and
Fallout's definitely one of them, for sure. Did he do Fallout 4?
Yes, he did.
Yes. Okay. Cool. I thought so.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to say anything in case I look like an idiot.
Oh, you never have to worry about that when I'm on the show.
Oh.
But yeah, he's done all the Fallouts since Fallout 3, and he's done Dragon's Dogma, Fantasia, Music Evolved, Guardians of Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings, War in the North, all, you know, tons of fantasy.
He's very versatile,
stuff.
and they all seem to fit, and yeah, he just does what the project requires. And sometimes that's not always his complete vision, but, you know, he works as a team. He's a team player, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, his contributions to video games have been, like, awesome. That's the best way to put it.
Towards the ending, before, like, if you hadn't downloaded the Brotherhood DLC, you know, if you played the game all the way through before that, when you had to make that decision on who was going to go into the water purification system, whether it be you or one of your companions, you know, that was a tough choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. And I get why they patched it, but I kind of like that if you chose to go in it yourself and kind of take the selfless route, the game was done. because you were dead.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what really bugged me about that the first time I played through. I had in my party, I had Sharon, the ghoul.
Oh, yeah?
You can't send him in. And I'm like, that's such a simple solution. He's like radiation resistant. This would be fine.
Yeah.
No one would die. It's the peaceful solution. And he won't go in. He's like, this isn't my choice to make. It's not part of my contract. This is outside the bounds of our contract. And I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, can you not take this for the team? Like, it's nothing to you. All you have to do is walk inside and press a button.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, so if you've got Sharon or I think Forks in your party, you have to do it.
Yep.
You don't get a choice because they can't die, which is just the worst. Like, why have that choice if it's not going to apply to everyone and you can't take the genius route? Like, yeah, that really frustrated me.
I agree,
Yeah.
but it was still kind of a surreal moment. I don't think I had either one of those in my party. I think it was me or somebody else, so of course I chose myself.
Yeah, see, like, if you'd asked me to send in, like, Butch or something, I'd be like, nope.
Yeah. I got
Nope.
this.
He does not understand what he's doing.
It's my mom and dad's legacy, so I guess it's my burden, type of thing.
I didn't realize how controversial Fallout 3 was on a lot of different levels when it came out. So you have drug-related stuff that kind of made it difficult to release in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have in Fallout 3 and subsequent Fallout games, there's a weapon called the Fat Man.
Yes.
That caused a lot of controversy in Japan, because obviously the connotation there, Fat Man being a nuclear weapon deployed on Japanese soil.
Understandably, they're still a little bit touchy about that. Understandably.
Yeah. And so, that a bunch of changes were made to the Japanese release of Fallout 3 that included not being able to blow up Megaton. So, like, entire quest lines were removed and the name of the weapon was changed. I don't remember what it was changed to.
It's just a Nuka-Cola launcher or something, I think.
Yeah.
I can remember reading about it. I'm not sure what they changed it to, but it doesn't actually make the mushroom cloud. It's just a generic explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that stuff was taken out, and it's also interesting because Fallout 3 is one of the best reviewed games that Famitsu, the Japanese reviewing magazine, has ever given to a Western game. I think at the time it was the highest. I'm not sure if it is anymore.
Yeah, I can remember it getting a really good score.
It was 38 out of 40.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not the highest anymore because they gave Final Fantasy 13 a perfect score.
But that's a Japanese developed
True.
game. They've given-
Regarding Western games.
Western
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So there was that one, but then I found out they didn't even release Fallout 3 at all in India.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, right, because of the nuclear tensions with Pakistan and...
No, because
that would make sense, but no.
It would make sense. But the reason, they never outright said the reason, but it kind of came out since release, that the reason they never released it in India was because there's basically a species of cow, mutated cow, in Fallout 3 called Brahmin.
Oh my
And
god.
Brahmin is also the name of basically the religious caste in India. So when you talk about Brahmin in India, you're talking about, their scholars and their priests that are very important in the Hindu faith. And so that's a kind of, and cows are also sacred.
Yeah.
So there was a bunch of these things that kind of came together, and we're just like, Microsoft came out and said, we're just not going to release Fallout 3 in India.
Wow. That's,
yeah.
I didn't know that about the Brahmin.
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez.
So, yeah.
That's
a little
just
interesting.
unfortunate. Like, it's just such a coincidental thing that's added up. Like, wow. Like,
yeah.
it's just a really unfortunate case of accidental naming, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think it was intentional. Like, I don't think they were trying to offend, but...
Well, I think what happened was they based Brahmin off of... There's a species of cow that is from India that's called Brahman.
Oh, okay.
With an A instead of an I.
Yeah.
And however that happened, it just did not work out well.
Oh, boy.
In that respect. Yeah.
That's oh, ouch. I can just imagine them like at the office, like getting this, like, you know, realizing what they've done and being like, oh boy, that's yeah. Like, just uncomfortable.
Well, it's also a double whammy because that particular species of cow is also, I think, even more revered in India.
Really?
So,
oh my god.
Yeah.
But aren't does Fallout 4 not have Brahmin as well? So...
Did Fallout 4 get an Indian release?
Well, that's a good question too. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the pack cows, or whatever you want to call them, the cows that carry the goods that you can buy every now and then along the way.
And
the caravan cows.
Yeah, maybe I'm just relating it to Fallout 3 and thinking Brahmin, but I kind of think they were called that.
Yeah, that's really odd. Unless maybe they actually changed the name of the cows in Fallout 4. They got around to it. I don't think they did.
Yeah,
I don't think they did.
Anyway,
there was some controversy surrounding the game, but I think there's controversy surrounding all games these days.
Oh yeah,
everything's global, and it's really hard to think of every scenario that could offend somebody on some level somewhere.
It is
somewhere.
Well, and that's why we have localization.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have those departments.
Exactly. Like when you're developing a game, it's impossible to take every culture into account, including, you've got India and its really nuanced case system. How is some developer in, like, Texas going to know about that? Which, like you said, is why localization is so important.
Well, and even if you did know about the caste system, formally it was disbanded years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But informally, it's still very much
a thing.
Yeah.
And that's not something that, I'm ever going to really properly understand, the nuances and details. So that's why you've got to have someone who's in that kind of culture who can be like, actually, on paper it works this way, but in real life this is how it works. Yeah.
That's why it's great to have a diverse team of developers, even if it's just some intern doing some artwork that Phil's has that can speak their mind and say something without it being just shot down and ignored.
This is why reaching out and getting consultants on anything you're working on is really important, because it kind of, you can have a consultant on a team. They're not always around. They don't have to be necessarily working on something, but there's someone who knows what they're talking about. And I really don't think consultants are utilized enough in games. I think a lot of people feel like they can just Google something and completely understand everything about it, like a couple of Wikipedia pages and boom, you're there, where that's really not the case. A studio that's really good with consultants is CD Projekt Red. They're awesome.
Yes.
I just want to thank them. They're sick. In a good, sorry, that's Australian slang.
Oh no. They're super classy. Like, every interaction I've ever had with CD Projekt Red has been great.
I've actually got a good friend of mine who worked as a consultant for them. Her name's Eve. Yeah, just the way they treated her and the way they took her advice on board. She was doing a lot of work with them as a costume consultant, because they wanted the costumes in the games to be realistic and attainable for cosplayers. And just the way that they collaborated with her and took everything she said on board was just so incredible. And that is why it's such a good game, I think, because they took all of that advice from all those different people on board,
Yeah. Well, games are a collaborative effort, and the more input you have during that collaboration, and Obviously, you need the resources in order to see it through, but given if you have as many resources as you need, get as much collaboration as you can and get as much input and then try and...
I'm of the opinion that when you're making a creative project that is like to the scope of a AAA game, you can never have too many voices.
Yeah. You don't have to listen to everything.
Exactly.
And you still need to, hold on to your own ideals and your own vision. But just like social media, for example, somebody can post a teaser image or teaser trailer and not think anything of it and get some backlash and sometimes make effective and good changes because of that. We've seen that pretty recently. With the over-the-shoulder pose for, I forget which character for which game. Tracy. Yeah,
I have avoided talking about it for so long. Oh my gosh.
I didn't mean to bring it up. I'm sorry, but just that concept of getting mass feedback, it helps.
Exactly,
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say straight up, I don't really have an opinion on that. I don't want to have an opinion on the actual pose itself because I don't play Overwatch. I don't know anything about it, and honestly, like as far as I'm concerned, it's their game. If someone gives them feedback and they decide, okay, yeah, no, you're right, we're going to change it for whatever reason, that's their game. They're allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's not the same as a full-blown campaign to entirely remove a character or something like that. Like, it wasn't an abusive campaign. It was literally one person saying, hey, just a suggestion, but in my opinion, I don't really like this, but hey, it's up to you. It's your game. Like, they were so polite about it. And they just went, no, that's really good feedback. That's cool. We'll do that. And it wasn't because they wanted to give in or they were worried about blowback or something. They literally just said, no, that's a really good point. Thank you. Like, that should be it. That should be the end of the discussion.
And it should have been.
Right.
We just kind of overlooked that. Our bad. I mean, they weren't going to sell any more or less copies based on that. But, they were open to it, and they didn't take I like David Jaffe, but they didn't take the whole David Jaffe approach of, F you, this is my vision, I'm going to do it however I want to do it, type of thing.
Don't stop me.
Well, they kind of said that, but in a much more diplomatic way. They were like,
there is a way to say that without being Dave Jaffe.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That was kind of my point there.
Yeah.
But so we kind of got off track there. But the other controversy that I wanted to talk about was, I say controversy in quotes here, but people were mad that it wasn't like the older Fallout games. There was a certain portion of Fallout 3, people who played Fallout 3 who were mad it wasn't a proper Fallout 3, in their own words.
I think people are going to be mad about anything that had something come before it. If that makes sense. Just like there's a bunch of Bloodborne detractors that are not happy because it wasn't Dark Souls. There's a bunch of Dark Souls detractors that weren't happy because it wasn't Demon Souls. There's always going to be that subset, that group, and now they can find a voice and a following and kind of raise some stink, but I think more often than not, they kind of just get laughed at and looked over. Games are so diverse. Games are made for so many different audiences. You can have a ton of variety in games, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where they're coming from, but I feel like from the get-go with the Fallout 3 marketing, like the way that they showed them what it was going to be before it came out, like they knew it wasn't going to be the same. Like, it was never marketed as a top-down turn-based strategy game. It was marketed as a mix of turn-based first-person shooting and, live action shooting. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, with the bat system, they still kind of had, to a degree, that turn-based system and I like the VAT system, personally.
If I can be honest, I am a Fallout freak. I could go on for hours and hours and hours about the backstory about Mariposa. I could go on about, the original super mutants and oh god, now I've forgotten his name, and it's stuffing my credibility up. But, I could go on about that, about the story of the previous games, but I suck at them. They're hard. They are really hard games, and they're just not my play style, whereas Fallout 3 is. But I can, it's like, it's not my play style, but it might be theirs. And this might not be their play style, but it's mine. I think that there's nothing wrong with IPs doing something new.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that too, because like there are some complaints in what they wanted from a new Fallout game that maybe Fallout 3 didn't deliver. As like in the original Fallout games, you sometimes are given many more nuanced options about what to do.
Absolutely.
And conversation options, but that's because the technological differences between Fallout 3 and the original Fallout are huge.
Yeah.
And what they were doing with Fallout 3 didn't permit that level of flexibility. It's a lot easier to have branching choices when those choices only involve differences in text.
And plus, if Interplay really wanted to do it in their vision, they should have put a ring on it. I mean... I'm just saying, it's a totally different developer.
Well, right. Interplay ran out of money to make Fallout 3 the way they wanted to do it, and that's partly because the way they were making games wasn't making money anymore, and needed to change.
If they tried to make Fallout 3 the way they'd wanted, which is, to my understanding, they wanted a modernized version of the last two games. They wanted the graphics and they wanted it to sell like a AAA game and they wanted it to be marketable. But if they'd wanted to do that and still have the same amount of variables as 1 and 2, it wouldn't have shipped. It would never have shipped.
Yeah,
it would still probably be in development. And if it did ship, it would be completely like unplayable. It would not be the game that we got, and it wouldn't have been a game that was of the quality it was. And I mean, that's speaking about Fallout 3 which like shipped with a million bugs, but like it would have been a mess.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, I think things like this work out for the best in general, because then Fallout 3 coming out the way it did, and a bunch of these people worked up about it not being the Fallout 3 they wanted. And so, lo and behold, 7 years later, there's an entirely new studio making The Wasteland 2. The Wasteland 2? Literally everything you probably wanted out of the original Fallout 3 that you might have gotten from Interplay.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was so much that I played 20 minutes and I was like, this is not my style. You see, at least with Fallout 1 and 2, it was Fallout, and I could kind of be like, yeah, well, it's Fallout, I'll just push through. But I think that was when I realized that top-down strategy games aren't really for me. Whereas, like, all my friends who've played Wasteland 2 loved it. They thought it was, like, the perfect game. They're like, this is what I wanted Fallout 3 to be. So I guess there was resolution in the end.
I think it's okay to love and appreciate both, but don't hate on one or the other just because you're so stubborn that you're set in a mindset that you're not going to change.
Exactly. Like, I look at the choices you can make in Wasteland 2, and I wish I could play it. I wish I could get up to them, because there's so much cool stuff that game does.
Yeah. The Wasteland 2, I reviewed it. It has a lot of those nuanced choices and dialogue trees, but at the same time, it is one of those games that is really hard to get into. Like, it doesn't open itself up to newcomers. It is opened up to people who wanted a top-down tactical RPG. It's like that hot, cool guy in high school. Like, if you could just get him, he's going to be cool and he's going to be fun, but you just got to get him to really just open up to you. You've got to get him to just express himself, and it's work. Exactly. If you put in the time and effort, you can change him.
You can change him. I mean, the other games want to be him, and the players think that they can change him.
Oh, this analogy is going places.
See, I was just that dorky cool guy in high school that everybody loved, and they weren't sure why. So, like, complete opposite, but I get it.
Are we making... Is this the beginnings of, like, a weird Japanese anime where games are high school boys?
It can be.
It
A
could.
new year, a fresh start.
I mean, that just takes a lot of writing, so I don't really want to have to do that.
It's like that one Japanese anime where all the characters are based off of countries from World War II.
Yeah, that thing. Oh god, I'm actually doing an anime convention this weekend. I'm working there.
Nice.
So, where are we all coming down on Fallout 3? I feel like this question is very self-explanatory, but we have to wrap up the episode because you have to go to work and we have to do adult things.
Before I answer that, I just want to add one little tidbit. I loved the Capital Wasteland. I'm kind of a history buff, American history specifically, and it was just so neat exploring that area. And you know, you find that guy that all he wants is the historical documents, and you know, you have to get those for him to move on. And the fact that the water purification system is being made in a Jefferson Memorial, man, that stuff just resonated with me. I really loved it.
Yes.
I take it that means you're coming down as a hard yes on is it one of the best games, period?
Game that everybody should experience. I think it's, even if you're a Fallout 1 and 2 traditionalist, I don't see how you can dislike this game. I think that it's well worth playing, and it'll kind of, you know, especially for when it came out pretty early on in the you know, Xbox, PlayStation 3, console generations. The scope of it was amazing. There were bugs, yes, there were glitches, but what you could do was just nonstop. You could sink 400 or 500 hours into that game if you wanted to, and I'm pretty sure I did. And you know, I think like at the end, depending on your choices, there were literally 200 different cutscenes and end scenes that could be seen. That's dedication. That's hard work. God bless Bethesda for going through all that. And just from the opening, like I said, the way they did the tutorial and the character creation was all intuitive, all interactive. And you open up the vault and it's just amazing. And you can go anywhere. You can do anything. And you meet amazing people. You get a dog. I mean, there's vampires. There's all kinds of things. It's just a game that I think everybody should play. So to me, yes, it's a best games, period.
How about you, Elizabeth?
Well, would I be here talking about it if I didn't think it was? I mean,
you nominated it. Maybe you'd say no. It's a giant fake out.
Look, I absolutely do think it's one of the best games. Look, it has aged a little bit, just a little bit though. It's still a game, like still, even now with Fallout 4 out and New Vegas coming after it, like it's a game that you can still sit someone who's completely new to video games down to play, and they will eventually get immersed into it. It's just such a story, atmospherically rich game. And I think it was just a phenomenal kind of achievement for video games in general, just the sheer scope and the sheer possibilities of this game and all the details put into it and the music and the characters. And I really do think that it was a landmark for the possibilities of how large and how limitless we can make video games. It's influenced so many games from here on out. Like you've even got like Nintendo making an open world Zelda game and things like that. It changed open world games. It really did. That's how I feel about it. And I'll fight anyone who says any different. You and me in the ring, 1v1, table, ladders, chairs. Let's go. Like
you mentioned immerse, and immersion in a game of that magnitude is not easy to do. And I felt invested and fully immersed the entire time.
Look, I mean, you ask anyone who's played even 8 hours of Fallout 3 about bottle caps, I can guarantee they save their bottle caps in real life. I can guarantee it. That's how you can pick out someone who's a Fallout 3 fan, because we just save bottle caps and we know that there's no use for them. We say that we'll do stuff with them. I'm always like, yeah, I'll use this for a craft project or a cosplay. Never do. They're just hanging out in a jar in my room, but I always save them because of that game. That's how immersive it is.
Literally to my left, I have a drawer that's probably got 60, 70 bottle caps in it.
I know, right?
And I don't know why. I've never saved them before. I hadn't. But now I'm like, I might be able to trade this for some, better gear, or maybe go to the local watering hole and find some companionship if I need to. I mean, they're versatile. You can do whatever you need to.
Dude, I'm in Australia. That's Mad Max town, and our economy is not great right now. Like, I need those bottle caps. You never know.
Bottle caps are the new Bitcoin.
I know.
So Jack, where do you fall on this game?
Where do I fall out on this game?
Oh.
It is a winner. It's a winner in my book. I think it set a technological bar for open world games that, I mean, Oblivion was kind of the first steps in that direction, but Fallout 3 took it to an entirely different level, in terms of storytelling, in terms of presentation, in terms of just animations and creatures and craziness and secrets hidden away. I think there are many open world games still today that would absolutely love to reach the same level of quality as Fallout 3. I think Fallout 3 is so good that even if it released today, 8 years later, it would still be well received. Like, that's the kind of game it is, and even age has not dulled that. Daniel's not here, and he usually closes out the show, dang it.
Okay, so I can give that a wing, Jack, if you like.
Oh, go for it.
Damn it, Daniel. That's hilarious.
Damn, Daniel.
Damn, Daniel. So, Elizabeth, thank you for joining us on episode 21 of the Best Games Period to talk about Fallout 3.
And thank you for having me.
It was our pleasure.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
It's been a glorious time, if I do say so myself. You can find us on Libsyn at the Best Games Period.
That's the name of the show.
Well, on Twitter, it's at Best Games Period.
Yes, on Twitter, it's at Best Games Period, but we're also on iTunes under the Best Games Period.
Jack does all the hard work and editing, and he uploads the show to all those various places on Monday. YouTube usually takes a couple extra days, but if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, it's well worth doing because you can hear our sultry, sleek voices along with watching relevant gameplay footage from whatever we were discussing.
Which in this case was Fallout 3, in case you didn't know by now in the episode.
You can find us individually on Twitter at RiverboatJack.
That's me.
I'm at MojoMonkey_12. Daniel Jones is at IndieJones84. Elizabeth, what is your Twitter?
Elizabeth Danger.
Elizabeth
Which
Danger.
is literally the best username, by the way. We were talking about that before we got you on the line.
I was so shocked it was free.
It's so good.
I could not believe I got it.
Yeah.
It sounds like a superhero
It's like
name.
winning the lottery without even buying a ticket.
I
That's
know,
pretty
right?
So I believe next week, Jack, we are talking about
The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
So y'all need to Z-target that episode and keep tabs on it because it's going to be fun. Really cool to watch or listen to.
And you better believe I'm going to be bringing up the person who is playing through Ocarina of Time using only an actual ocarina as a controller.
Oh,
No
yes,
way.
yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He has a program running that lets him control the game by playing notes on his ocarina, and it is amazing.
Video games have gone too far.
Yes.
We've gone too far. We need to stop now.
Video games were a mistake. Also, $10. Daniel calls it Ocarina, and I might have to hurt him.
Yep. Thank you for listening to the Best Games Period. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our humble little podcast, and be sure to catch us next week, every week on Mondays. And with that, make sure you check out Extra Life, which is a pretty sweet charity that allows you to play video games and help sick kids in hospitals all across North America. It's pretty sweet. Check it out at community.extra-life.org. And thank you very much to Elizabeth for joining us this week on the podcast. It was an absolute blast to have you. And with that, thank you all for listening to the Best Games Period.